Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to Living Greater. It is the 10 o'clock hour Eastern Standard Time. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, I am renewing my commitment to post a weekly. Every now and then it might come more than once a week, but every Sunday morning during the 10 o'clock hour. I want to share with you some thoughts as I give attention to a combination of spiritual, social, and political issues and how they kind of converge. And what does that mean to you and your desire to live greater? That's a part of my passion. And so I've tried to find different ways to frame it. And so lately I started to frame these segments as living greater segments. So what does all of this have to do with your desire to live greater, your desire to be who you are as a divine expression in the earth? And so a lot, right, is going on in our country, United States of America, and around the world. And so I wanted to give a little bit of, I wanted to give some narration to that. And so I'm titling this segment of Living Greater, Sexual Healing. Yes, sexual healing. And so, of course, I'm borrowing from the famous phrase coined by Marvin Gaye, the late Marvin Gaye, as he, of course, recorded the popular secular song. And let me just say that for whatever your interpretation is, blah, 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 I absolutely think that there is a gift in intimacy, sexual intimacy, and we've got a lot of research that talks about what that means to the health of relationships and human condition. NPR just did a release a couple of weeks ago. They did a piece on just relationships in general and what it means to overall health, what it means to singles versus married couples, who's most likely to develop symptoms of Alzheimer's. And so let's just say, for the record, sexual healing, with its best intentions, sexual healings are good for the human condition. Now, that being said, of course, what we're dealing with, a big part of the narrative lately has been the issues of sexual violations and sexual assault. And I've said in my very first Living Greater segment a few weeks ago, as I kind of introduced the type of conversations that I wanted to initiate here, that it's pervasive. Sexism, classism, racism, pervasive. And if you don't believe it, if it seems like it's so unbelievable that all of these, accusations could be a bit real, then it means that you've been living in the privilege of not having to deal with it. The privilege of not having to address it, not having to live through it. Gosh, I can do another side commentary on that, but I'll keep moving forward. So it's pervasive. And what's interesting to me is that the people that you think should be able to address the types of sexual healings that we need in response to sexual violations among upon children, rampant. And certainly sexual violations upon women, rampant. And even to a degree, men. It's real. It exists. And so the healing, the people that you think would initiate and participate in the type of healing dialogue that we need, they can't. And they can't because it takes power for something like this to be so rampant. In order for racism, sexism, and what we're seeing, in order for that to be rampant, it takes power. It takes people in power. It takes a systemic support, meaning that the policies and procedures have to support those types of violations, and they do. And that's why it's been so rampant and it's been so consistent for so long. And again, the people that you think would be the healers of these sexual violations and assaults are not. You know, you think it's not surprising that a part of what we're seeing, as we saw media executives and we see long-standing political giants who have certainly given great contributions to to policies, discussions, and so forth. It is not amazing that you see them being caught in this restricted way of living, what I define in the first segment as generational curse. A curse is a restricted way of thinking. And so you've seen individuals who have been groomed in this restricted way of thinking as it relates to children and women, and sometimes men. And so it's not surprising that you see this really coming upon leaders in various ways. Now, we have ebbs and flows of how this might impact spiritual leaders. So we've seen from time to time, we've had, major break-in stories because of what we might have seen in the Catholic Church with some priests and so on. We thought we dealt with some things when we saw Jimmy Swaggart, apologize for, I think his dealings with prostitutes or what have you. We thought we saw something when we saw Tim Haggard, resigned from his church because of his dealings with same-sex relationships. We thought we had a productive discussion because of the allegations with Eddie Long and his recent passing. Jim Baker went to jail, so we thought we had dealt with some of these. When I tell you, even in religious organizations, sexual violations upon children and women rampant. And the people that you think should be the healers aren't. Why? Because they are a part of the power structure that support it. So what am I saying to you in this Living Greater segment? Because it sounds like I'm angry and no. What I'm saying is the healers rarely come from the center of power. The healers are normally those of us that are living on the outskirts of the power system, the advocates, those that they call disenfranchised. We're typically the ones that bring healing to these situations. And even if you take a figure like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was not the center of any power structure when he became, as he evolved into a prominent advocate. Okay, he was not the center. He was not the president of the Baptist Association. He became, I think, leaders in those dimensions, Southern Christian leadership or whatever. But he did not start out as the president advocating for social justice. He was just a Baptist preacher in a city, in a town, that had the courage to stand up and had the gift to speak and articulate what the issues were. Healers, and even the sexual healers that we need in our day and time to address the sexual violations upon children and women, and even sometimes men, they're not at the center of the power structure. They're those of us that have the courage to invade the power structures, to invade the conversation. And that invasion might mean a march. It might mean posting. It might mean finally coming forward with your story because you now have a newfound courage in the midst of what has happened. We are the sexual healers. Those of us that have enough courage to stand up with expanded consciousness to say that we are human expressions of divinity, and none of us deserve that type of treatment. None of us. None of us. So, and so again, the people that you think would stand up and do it are not those that are. Christians are very quiet. Very, very quiet. Unless we're talking about abortion and gay rights, Christians are very quiet, and it's very hypocritical. Yes, it is. And I speak from that corner because that's the corner that I'm affiliated with. Those are the folks I grew up with. Those are the folks I know. And they're very quiet. They comment more on who was taking a knee during NFL anthems than Charlottesville. And the degree to which they do not speak out against sexual violations. And there's a reason, because they're conditioned to be quiet and support it. Yes, we've supported it. They support it, not ongoing. When the conversations about Ray Moore from Alabama, and yes, those are allegations. But here is the question: would a Barack Obama or even a Ronald Reagan had been able to pursue the Senate, House, or presidency with that allegation? I question. And for Christians to back him in the way that they are doing it's not surprising to me, because the violations that are rampant in religious organizations have yet to be told. The little stories we heard about Jimmy Swaggart, Jim Baker, Eddie Long, that's so small in comparison to how rampant sexual violations are. And we need sexual healers. The sexual healers are those of us that are willing to stand up and ask people to account. And when I say account, you know, imagine what would have happened, because John Conyers, I don't know as much about Al Franken as I do about John Conyers. John Conyers has been definitely a major player on the side of justice. Imagine what would happen if those individuals would take time to see the reckoning and would say, look, you got to get out in front of the stores before they get out in front of you. When you sit back and you're quiet, this is what happens. Instead of taking a stand as soon as possible to say, listen, I have issues, and I've been a part of in some of the most. I've been a part of these situations in ways that we thought were okay because that's what we were told. And I'm here to say we've got to take a stand and make a difference. And it's starting with me, and I'm calling on my colleagues. We might not have told all of our stories, and who knows, they might go and pull them up. But I'm here to say I apologize for that which I've done. And I would like to take a stand and say, let's come together and let's start speaking out and supporting right is right. What if that kind of speech had been given ahead of, oh, now a news report comes up? And so it might sound like I'm just blabbering going on, but I'm telling you, we need sexual healers, and they typically aren't the people that are already in the center of power. They are individuals like us sitting on our lanai, our back porch, and speaking out and taking a stand. And so the sexual healers are those of us that are willing to stand up and call right, and wrong, and violation, violation. Those of us that are willing to support those that tell a story. And if it's a lie, truth has its way of panning out. It does. And Ray Moore and others are innocent until proven guilty. But it is certainly one thing for, in these cases, for, you know, multiple individuals to have some thought of that and versus one. And sometimes you need to maybe step aside and let the investigations and so forth take their course. So, sexual healers, we have to be the ones, those of us that have the courage to stand out. We have to be the ones. It won't come from the center of power. And so my challenge to you as a part of Living Greater is to find your courage to either tell your story, and not all stories have to be told publicly, but I think there is a challenge to the hypocrisy. I think that's why all of these stories are lifting, because it's a challenge to the hypocrisy that we see going on. It's an absolute challenge to the hypocrisy. And gosh, I want to even say so much, and I'll just go ahead since I'm in it. And I don't know, I'm about, looks like I'm about 13 minutes into a post now. So since I'm in it, I might as well go and swim a little more. You know, I don't think that Hillary Clinton is perfect, and the votes have spoken. Okay. But there is research that indicates that a lot of the backlash for Hillary Clinton was indeed because she was a woman. Was indeed. In fact, there are male political colleagues that say she has been perhaps the most qualified candidate to ever run for president. And a part of the backlash, even from women, is that we, not me, but many women did not want to see a woman, was not prepared to see a woman. Were not prepared to see a woman in the office of president. And so here we are. I think a part of this is the backlash for the hypocrisy that we have presented in this generation and for generations. And every generation has its call for the healers. And so I am inviting others of you to be healers, to live out your greatness by supporting righteousness, justice, right thinking. When I say righteousness, I don't mean all the stuff that you might think, but right thinking, respect, and human dignity. Respect and human dignity. We are the healers, those of us that are willing to live in that consciousness, and we can do it. It doesn't mean I'm not perfect by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but I am committing myself to evolve and live out what is right in regards to our expressions to one another in the way of human dignity. We deserve that. In this generation, they are challenging us. They are calling us out. And every generation goes through that. And it's our time. All right? Okay, healers, sexual healers, rise up, live out your greatness. Stand up for those whose voice has been weakened. Welcome to Greater. As always, I invite you to join us at our Sunday gatherings, 1 o'clock to 2 p.m., 2910 Orient Road here in Tampa, Florida, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., about 2 miles, I think I have been saying north, but it's 2 miles south of the Hard Rock Cafe, off of I-4 and Hillsborough Avenue. So this is my Living Greater post. We need healers to stand up, okay? Take care, everybody. Bye. Love you. Welcome to Greater.